Hi everyone, thanks for joining me once again. If you haven't been here before, my name is Peter, this is Thailand Bound, and today I'm going to be reading out 5 viewers' stories. Guys who have come to Thailand and they have a story to tell through me to you. Okay, right, before we get started, I just want to talk about something that kind of annoys me. It really does, you know, I like a whinge now and again. I had a message from a guy who left a comment. He basically said, oh, I've heard these stories before. Now, I've been running this channel for 5 years and I've read out hundreds of stories, literally hundreds, okay? You think about it, 3 to 5 stories per upload every week for a year, 5 years. That's a lot of stories, okay? But occasionally I do run a little bit low. I might have 2 new stories, and if I just read them, maybe the upload would be 15 minutes. As you know, I like to do about 30 minutes upload. So I might tag on a story that I've already read on the end. It just so happened that last week I didn't have any stories at all. I'd completely run out. Now I've got a choice. I can either put up a message saying, sorry guys, no stories this week. Hopefully I'll get some more in the next couple of weeks. I can do that, right? Or I can go back into my older stories from 4 or 5 years ago, pick out some really good ones that were very good. And bearing in mind, back then, 5 years ago, I only had kind of 15, 18,000 subscribers and past the 70,000, 71,000 point now. So I can either do that or I can get some of the older stories that I think are the better stories and read them out again. It's absolutely pointless to write to me and say, I've heard these before, because what am I going to do? I'm not going to delete the video because a lot of people like hearing them again. I had comments from people saying, I remember this story, but it was enjoyable to hear it again. Okay, so a couple of things here. Firstly, there are timestamps in the description. So if you hear a story and you think, I've read this or I don't want to listen to it, just skip forward to the next story. It's as simple as that. Also, there is a lot of kind of copycat sites that have sprung up over the last 2 years, I would say. A couple of them I've had to report to YouTube for actually stealing stories from my channel. You might have heard a story on their channel. So, you know, if it's not for you, if you, like I say, if you think you've heard the story before, then it's better to just move on. It's pointless to send me a message. As I say, I'm not going to delete the video, and a lot of people like to hear those stories again, or they haven't heard them, they're new subscribers. Okay, right, I'm happy to report that the 5 stories today are all brand new. I've never read them out on this channel. If you think you've heard them before, 100% not on this channel. Okay, right, okay, let's get into the first of 5 stories.
สวัสดีค่ะ
Hi Peter, hope you're well. I wanted to share with you a short and rather scary story from Vietnam, where I've been working for the last couple of years, but this could have taken place anywhere in Southeast Asia. In late 2024, I was riding a motorcycle down a city street with a girl I was dating at the time named La. It was already dark, but not particularly late, maybe 7:30 or 8 p.m. when I rounded a corner and happened on a situation ahead. The traffic in Vietnam is bad on any day, but a couple of 100 meters ahead, I saw a particular bottleneck as the hordes of bikes and cars had slowed down to almost a stop. As I got closer, I realized a crowd had formed and they were watching something. When I reached the crowd, I saw something that horrified me. Outside one of the local street bars, I saw 4 scruffy-looking young Vietnamese men, you may know the type from anywhere in Southeast Asia, with military haircuts, sleeve tattoos, fake Gucci clothing, and obnoxious attitudes. In Thailand, I believe they're called Dek, Wents. On the ground, I saw a young girl who looked no older than 19, unconscious while being brutally beaten and kicked by the 4 men. They were absolutely hammering her. A crowd of passerbys had gathered. Some were watching, some had taken out their smartphones to film. Some were even entertained by the spectacle happening in front of them. But not a single one of them stopped or tried to help the poor girl. I was horrified. I'm a decent-sized guy and I knew I could have taken these 4 cowards. Each of them was only about 5'1" and 120 pounds on a good day. I stopped the bike to intervene before Lynn suddenly stopped me. Don't do it, she said. The entire crowd will turn on you and you'll go to jail. And sadly, Lê was right. This fiercely tribal society will stand by amused as a young girl who could have been their sister, daughter or girlfriend gets brutally beaten by a gang of low-life animals. But the moment a foreigner steps in to intervene, the entire crowd will turn on you for attacking a local. As such, I rode on furiously, dismayed by the state of humanity. Life is so cheap in this country and in many countries in this region. I've even heard reports of truck drivers hitting motorcyclists and going back to run over them again in order to pay a one-off penalty to the deceased's family rather than support a crippled person financially for life. As a Westerner, I will never get my head around it. It's truly the Wild West out here. My advice to anyone listening, avoid any confrontations with locals, even when morally justified and in situations that shock, offend or horrify any sane person. Some of these people simply have no morals, and as a foreigner, you will always be found to blame, and even when you do right, keep safe out there. He's absolutely right. I mean, it's terrible. We've all witnessed these kind of situations where girls were getting slapped in the street or something similar like he's described. And it does. What happens if you go in and intervene, then they'll turn on you. And I'll tell you a true story that happened to a friend of mine. He was in Pattaya and he was walking along the beach road, and there was a guy on the other side of the road with a girl. It looked like his girlfriend, apparently. Okay, and the guy was, they were arguing. The guy was shouting at the girl and eventually started slapping the girl in the face. Okay, so this guy who told me this story went over and intervened, and basically the guy turned around. He said, "What's the problem?" The Thai guy said to him, "There's no problem here, but you know, if you want to carry on with this, there's going to be a big problem." And one or two other guys started moving towards them. So it's a terrible situation. Nobody likes to see a girl get beat up, or like in this story, absolutely horrifying. But honestly, if you're in that situation, you're in a foreign country, the best thing you can do is just look away. I mean, you're not going to win. You're not going to help that person because they will turn on you and they'll carry on with her. Terrible. Right, let's jump into story number 2. First off, the names I will be using are not mine or my husband's real names, for we both enjoy watching and hearing the stories you read out. Unlike so many stories you read, this might seem a little different. I'm a Thai lady. I was born in northeast Thailand. My husband was in the military when we met in 1971. We two had met in a bar. He was 21 years of age. He had spent a year in Vietnam. Then he was sent to Thailand. Just a little about him. He has never really had any friends. He still keeps to himself, rarely talks to his family, and still has no friends. Let me get back to my story. We had met in a bar. He looked worried and lonely, so I went over to talk to him, and I asked him to go home with me, which he did. 2 days later, he moved into my room and we started living together. In December of 1972, our first child was born, but he went back to the USA. I didn't know if I would ever see or hear from him again, but in January 1973, he returned for another 6 months. Somehow, he found me and asked me to marry him, which I did. He still had no friends and still looked sad. In 1973, he brought me to the USA. We had 2 more children, but that's not the story I want to tell you. The man I married has 2 sides. One side, he cares and supports his family, even his brother and sister whenever they need anything, even though they never talk or come to see him. The other side is the dark side, the one where he cheats on me and he talks with other women online. But he has never allowed our family to go without food, housing or care. I'm sure that he loves me and our children, but he's always looking for something else, for he's never happy. But this man never lets me forget where I came from and allows me to visit Thailand whenever I want. But I can't trust him. I think that's because of his loneliness. This is the only way in which he thinks he can find friends. We have been together now for almost 54 years. He still treats me as a stranger and does not bother his children or me unless we start the conversation. I feel sorry for him. There is so much love in his heart, but he has never allowed anyone to come close. Even after all these years, I still don't really know him, but this I do know, he will give to anyone who asks. I have asked him about how he grew up, but he is very vague about anything, and when he does answer, there is not a lot of information given. But this is the story of a Thai bar girl who married an American and became a US citizen. I never expected to ever go anywhere but to a rice field when I got older. But this man, even with all his faults, still takes care of me. So not all bar girls take advantage of men. Sometimes the man takes advantage of the bar girl. Thank you for listening to me. Do you know, it's really nice to have a story sent in by a woman. And in fact, what makes it even nicer is that it's a Thai woman. She must be pretty old now because she said this was 54 years ago. I'm guessing she's probably around 70. But it's very, very nice to get a story from a Thai woman. And the reason for me personally is because as I said at the beginning of the upload, I've read out hundreds of stories. And from time to time, people will write to me. You know, you get trolls and armchair critics. They don't really bother me. You know, guys will write in and say, you're an idiot. And, you know, I just laugh it off or delete the comment. But from time to time, some people write in and say, look, you're very disrespectful to Thai people. You live in Thailand, you're telling these stories, you're putting the girls down. And it's just not true. I'm just reading out guys' experiences. But when a Thai person writes a story and sends it in to me, it kind of, it's almost like an approval from a Thai person that I'm doing the right thing. And I really like to read out these stories from Thais, especially Thai women. I hope she's doing okay, and a nice little story there. And I have another story, not from a Thai woman, but another woman anyway. Okay, let's jump into story number 3. Peter, I've been watching your channel for around 3 years now, and I must say it's been both entertaining and informative. About 2 years ago, I decided it was time for one last big life adventure, something different, maybe even a little romantic. My grandkids are always saying, what will crazy granddad do next? So I thought, how about a trip to Thailand? My name is Paul and I'm 81 years old. I'd been browsing ThaiCupid for a while and had been chatting with a few women who caught my attention. I reached out to about 5 ladies, but eventually narrowed it down to 2. I'm not the kind of guy who copies and pastes the same message to everyone. I like to keep it personal. The woman I was most interested in was named Chop, and she lived in Bangkok. We all search for our own happiness or sometimes our own heartbreak, depending on which voice we follow. That's just how I see it. Anyway, the flight over to Thailand turned into a bit of an adventure on its own. Let's just say the bathroom situation on the plane nearly became an international incident. I sat down to take care of business, and when I hit the flush button, the suction nearly pulled me straight through the seat. I mention this as a friendly warning to other older gents. Be careful in those aeroplane loos. After what felt like forever in the air, I finally landed in Bangkok. The taxi ride to the hotel was uneventful, though I definitely noticed the humidity. Once I checked in, I sent a message to Chup to let her know I had arrived. She replied quickly and told me she was both excited and surprised that I actually came. I wasn't sure what that meant, but I figured it might just be her English. She tended to express herself better in writing than when speaking. A little later, she revealed something that caught me off guard. She admitted she wasn't actually 48 as listed on her profile, but was quite a bit younger. She asked if I minded. I won't lie, I felt a bit let down. But I decided to go with the flow. In a message she sent me, she wrote, "Love never judges. Love only feels blindly with pure heart and soul." That line stuck with me. She was pleased I didn't make a fuss, and she said she wanted to come over to meet me immediately. I gave her my room number and told the front desk to expect a visitor. I asked them to call me when she arrived. The star's English wasn't perfect, but it was enough to get the message across. I was exhausted from the journey and had dimmed the lights in the room, thinking about the message Chup had promised to help me unwind. I figured I'd get some rest before attempting any serious aerobics, if you know what I mean. The front desk called and I offered a tip if someone would kindly escort her up. They seemed a bit hesitant but eventually agreed. When Chup arrived, I gave her a hug and asked her playfully, "Where's that back rub you promised me?" She smiled and went straight to work on my shoulders. I remember thinking how young she looked, but I told myself I was probably just tired and seeing things. Her English was broken, but she said she was very happy to finally meet me. As she spoke, I drifted off into one of those deepest sleeps I've ever had in years. When I woke up, I noticed I was dressed in a fresh pair of boxers. Chup had apparently helped me change while I was out cold. She was asleep in the bed next to me. I had a good 5 hours of rest, and by morning I was fully recharged and feeling great. She started being affectionate, kissing my neck and being very sweet. I thought surprise her with a playful gesture and reached out to grab her affectionately. Let's just say what I grabbed was not what I expected. I got a bit of a shock. I excused myself to the bathroom immediately, my mind racing. She followed and stood at the door, clearly upset and emotional, saying things that were mostly quotes I had sent her about love and acceptance. Now, imagine ordering pancakes and lifting the lid to find a breakfast burrito. You'd be confused, right? That was my moment. I'll admit I said a few choice words. Not out of anger, just pure surprise. I told her, Chup or Andy or whatever your name is, preferred, that I needed a moment to gather myself. In the bathroom, I couldn't decide whether to laugh or cry. Then something strange happened. I started thinking about the 1960s when I was a young man in San Francisco during the Summer of Love. Back then, love was about freedom and expression. We didn't put limits on what love was or supposed to look like. Maybe in a strange way, this was history repeating itself. I stepped out of the bathroom feeling 60 years younger. I kissed Chip on the neck, smiled and said, "You sure you can handle this? Thanks for letting me share my story, Peter. Whether people laugh or raise an eyebrow, it's all part of life's unpredictable ride." So it's always surprising the number of stories I've read out where guys think they're taking a girl back to the room and it ends up as a guy and they think, oh, what the heck, you know. Personally, I couldn't do it, honestly. I'm no kind of prude or anything like that, but 100% I like ladies, girls, you know. I just couldn't go for it. As I say, I'm not judging or being a prudish, it's just not me. But let me just tell you something, you know, if you do pick up a girl and you're not sure, you can actually ask them. They won't get offended. It's better to ask if you're not sure rather than to end up in the same situation as this guy. There's so many beautiful girls here in Thailand. In fact, I was talking to a friend yesterday and we were talking about how outstanding the beautiful girls are in Thailand. And one of the things he said to me, he said, you know, this is the only country in the world where I walk around a shopping mall and there's women with mops mopping the floor and they're absolutely stunning. You know, you date any of them and they're cleaners, you know, nowhere else in the world. Right, okay, story number 4, and this is from a Spanish lady who lives in Peru. Is that how you pronounce it? Peru. She lives in Peru. She has sent a story in the past, and this is her second or third story she sent to me. Always good to hear stories from females out there. This is Susan again, the Spanish woman living in Peru. Today, I want to tell you about Ricardo. I met Ricardo last year. I had to go to the Spanish embassy in Lima and I booked a hotel in the Barranco district. Barranco is not close to the embassy, but it is well connected via the metro bus. I just wanted to look at the sea and wind down, and Barranco is perfect for that. It is also well known for its nightlife, but I am not a night person and I do not go to bars. I was only interested in the beach. I arrived at my hotel and the receptionist was just stunning. I should clarify at this point that I am 50 years old and only attracted to men my age or a bit older. The receptionist's name was Ricardo. He welcomed me and said, "Today is my birthday. I am 65. He offered me some candy. There were some birthday cards on the reception desk, so I assumed it was true. The candy was clearly an excuse to start a conversation. He asked me if I was a tourist. I said no. I was going to the Spanish embassy to deal with paperwork. His eyes lit up when I said that, and I realized he was intrigued by the idea that I was from Spain. He proceeded to ask where my husband was. I explained that I am divorced, which is true, and that I travel alone. He then told me he is separated from his wife, though still legally married. I was attracted to him, so I agreed to meet him for a vending machine coffee at reception at 10 p.m, since he was working the night shift. It turned out Ricardo was well educated and comes from a middle class family. He is also a part-time singer. But soon red flags started to appear, though not the ones people usually expect. This is where my story may seem a little different. He told me that he descends from one of the first families of Spanish missionaries in Peru, the Orr family. His mother's surname is indeed Orr, which checks out, and he claimed to be related to some high-up family member. Whether Ricardo is truly related to him, I cannot say for sure, but he believes it. So be it. My concern began when Ricardo started expressing some highly offensive and intolerant views. He referred to the ladies of Peru natives in a very disrespectful way and made inappropriate comments about different ethnic and religious groups. I was shocked and didn't know what to say. He even went so far as to suggest that pre-Hispanic archaeological sites should be removed because they do not align with his cultural beliefs. I was absolutely speechless and deeply uncomfortable with the level of intolerance he expressed. He went on to talk about his appearance, saying he is handsome because of his Spanish ancestry, and mentioned that he used to be a nude model for the Fine Arts Academy in Lima. He is indeed good looking, and I believe his story about being a model, partly because he has a skin condition which gives him a very unique look. I don't mention this to fixate on him in any way, and I hope it is not taken that way. Anyway, we are still in contact. He recently came to visit me again while I was staying in Surako, the district where the US Embassy is located, because I had more paperwork to handle. He keeps insisting that we should have a romantic relationship, but I just can't bring myself to be intimate with someone who holds such hateful views. He is not like other men who are just after money or a visa. What he seems to want is status, marrying a Spaniard for the sake of appearances. A few days ago, he gave me a tour of the Soroko district and said, "When we get married, we can rent an apartment here." I reminded him that he had told me he was separated but still married. He responded, "No, I've been divorced for 11 years, so not only is he biased, he is also dishonest." You might ask why I still talk to him. The truth is, I'm fascinated by human nature. I like to observe people. I simply can't help myself. Dear Peter, if you think this story is worth sharing, please feel free to change names or adjust it as you see fit. I appreciate your content and always enjoy your channel. Talk to you soon. Your Susan. That's quite cute there. I've never been called Dear Peter. Well, probably for the better because most of the viewers are guys. But I did change your name. I didn't change anything else. I read some of the towns and descriptions of where she was going were quite difficult for me to get my tongue around, as it were, because they were kind of Peru names or Spanish. So I had to make some slight changes. But if you're watching this, Susan, who isn't your real name, I know what it is. I hope you enjoyed this story, and any more, keep them coming. Okay, right, we're going to go into our final story today. This is the longest of all 5 stories. Hopefully you'll enjoy this, and again, they're all brand new stories this week. Hello Peter, I'm an American. My name is Fred. I'm choosing to begin my story in 2018 as that is the year I decided to move to Thailand. I had actually been planning to only visit Thailand on a holiday with my brother and his wife. We were planning to stay for only a month, but due to various stressful circumstances in my life, I decided I would try to start over in the land of smiles. I was 32 years old, a student living and working in Orange County, California. Although Southern California is a beautiful place, I was struggling to make ends meet due to my awful salary and the extremely high cost of living in California. To make matters worse, I had just gone through a terrible breakup with my long-term girlfriend. I was reaching my breaking point. I needed something to change. I was graduating from university in May of that year. One night, over some beers, I made a split-second decision to live and teach in Thailand. I was so tired of being broke all the time, I figured I'd rather see the world as a broke traveller than stay in my depressing apartment working in a job that I hated. Plus, with my new degree, I wanted to take a chance teaching in Thailand. Leading up to my graduation, I became obsessed with researching everything Thailand. I began to dream about what life would be like living in the land of smiles. I planned everything from Airbnbs, hotels, ferry crossings, even down to the place we would eat. I knew I wouldn't be seeing my brother and sister-in-law for a long time, so I wanted to make the trip as special as possible. I graduated May 19th, and by May 27th, we were flying to Singapore. The itinerary I created for the 3 of us had us landed in Singapore and backpacking up through Malaysia to Thailand. I booked lodging in Johor Bahru, Kuala Lumpur, Penang, then flying from Penang, Malaysia to Phuket. I know this is not a Malaysian YouTube channel, so I won't go over the incredible experience I had there. The one experience I feel is worth mentioning is the morning we were scheduled to take a bus from Johor Bahru to Kuala Lumpur. We were running late to the bus station. The bus I had planned for us to take was leaving at 12:15 p.m. and it was already 11:50 when we arrived at the station. We still had to manage to purchase our tickets, so they were all feeling a bit stressed. The loudspeaker was screeching in a different language at a volume that was making my head spin, and the massive crowd of people bustling about wasn't helping matters. I was trying to figure out the ticket machine when my brother's wife said she didn't want to rush and that we should take the 12:45 bus instead. We argued a bit, but in the end I reluctantly agreed and we booked the later bus. It was about an hour into the journey when we realised how lucky we were. Yes, the 12:15 bus had a major collision with a huge lorry. Online they reported 3 dead and around 20 seriously injured. My brother's wife was so adamant about taking a later bus, I have no doubt it was her intention that saved us that day. We arrived in Phuket and did the normal tourist things. I booked a resort for my brother and his wife as a surprise. They had an excellent time and I was happy for them, but I was feeling a bit lonely being around them and all the other couples in the various places we went. I went out to a couple of bars, but because of my research, I was a bit overly curious when talking with girls in bars. In the end, I decided to try dating in our next destination, Bangkok, as I wasn't really looking for a one-night stand, rather someone to show me around the local areas instead of the tourist traps. I had booked our Bangkok accommodation for 2 weeks, staying only 3 nights in each Airbnb in several different areas throughout the city. This gave us an excellent taste of the local areas. I decided to use dating apps to get more of a local perspective, as I knew I would be living in Thailand. I was desperate to get away from the typical Farang scene and discover something special. I put on my dating profile that I wasn't looking for aerobics and that my motivation was to discover local Thai food, history and music. I was shocked at how many women wrote me online initiating a meetup. I'm from America where you can send out 100 messages and maybe get a few generic responses, but in Thailand it's a whole different world. I only used the app for 2 days before I connected with Nang. She was 31, she was gorgeous, but the thing that got me really interested was her sense of humour. She had me cracking up every time we chatted online. Needless to say, her English was excellent. After 5 days of chatting, I asked her to meet up with me for lunch or dinner. Instead of answering my request with a yes or no, Nang just decided to change the subject. I felt a bit let down because I was going to be heading to Chiang Mai with my brother and his wife in 2 days for a week, and I really wanted to meet her again before that. I told her I would be in Chiang Mai for a week and that I would still message her every day. She laughed and teased me, saying that I was only going there to visit my wife. Her beauty, sense of humour and quick wit had me thinking about her every day. Chiang Mai was great. We were there during the 2018 World Cup, so of course, being a football fanatic, it was pretty much heaven on earth for me. Nang and I would message throughout the days and nights while I was discovering one of the most magnificent cities I'd ever been to. The temples and nature alone are worth the trip. The people in the north were so warm and inviting. One night I got drunk with the 3 old men I saw gambling in front of a shop house. They tried to direct me to a bar, but I told them I wanted what they were drinking. I was half joking, but they were quick to offer me a seat. The television was tuned into a Thai boxing fight. The upcoming fight was between a Frenchman and a Thai. The old men began shouting at me, saying I had to bet on the foreigner. I told them I don't bet, but they didn't care, so I figured, okay, when in Rome. All the old men put the money on the Thai fighter. I realised that the French fighter was 5 kilos heavier and a good bit taller than the Thai fighter. I was thinking this is hardly fair. Sure enough, the poor Thai fighter was on the canvas in no time and couldn't manage to stand up, so the Frenchman won. The old men started yelling at the TV angrily as they all started pushing their money towards me. I told them it was just for fun and I couldn't take their money as they were already giving me free alcohol. That didn't matter to them. They seemed thrilled to have me as a guest. As the wife of one of the old men came out from a back room, the old man began to collect their things. I could tell she was ready for our boys' night to be finished. I started walking back to my room, which was only about 3 kilometers away. To my surprise, one of the old men was a tuk-tuk driver, and his tuk-tuk was parked at the side of the shop. He yelled at me to get in and that he didn't want me walking on the street late at night due to the crazy drivers. I'm aware of the irony. Part of me wanted to refuse, but then I felt a rush of excitement and got in. He drove me to my Airbnb and again refused to accept any money. His smile was so kind and genuine. I can't help but smile thinking back on that reckless night. I was having an excellent time with my brother and his wife in Chiang Mai, but was counting the days when we'd be flying back to Bangkok. I decided to be more direct with Nang. I called her while she was on a break at work. I told her I wanted to see her as soon as I landed and that we had been talking for almost 3 weeks now and that it was time for a face-to-face meeting. She just replied, okay. I was beyond excited as our plane approached Dong Muang Airport in Bangkok. I rushed the three of us to our new Airbnb, which was in the Bangwa area. My brother and his wife were a bit scared for me to be meeting up with a person I met online in a foreign country, but they were also happy to get some time alone. I was getting ready for my date with Nang when I was hit with a flood of doubt. My confidence had taken a beating over the past few years, and a part of me felt like maybe this experience would end in me being disappointed or Nang not liking me. I took a few deep breaths and told myself that this was my new life and I wasn't going to be the sad guy sitting at home feeling sorry anymore. After my pep talk, I was on a motorbike to the BTS to meet Nang at the Siam BTS station. As the wind poured through my hair, my doubts seemed to be quickly disappearing. If you spent time in Bangkok, you'll understand the complexity that is the Siam BTS station, as it is the meeting point for 3 train lines. That being said, I was able to navigate through the crowd up the escalator to where Nang said she would be waiting for me. I had already made up my mind that if she wasn't as beautiful as she was in her pictures online, I wouldn't feel let down. I would just try to enjoy the experience. As I walked through the crowd, I saw her. She was looking out across the city. I was shocked. If I'm being honest, my first emotion was fear. I knew from the moment I saw her, I wasn't going to be able to just say goodbye. She was far more beautiful in person than her photographs. Nang turned and recognized me with a big Thai smile and said, hello. I just looked at her with a dumb grin. I couldn't seem to put my words together for several minutes. We just sat, looked at each other and giggled like teenagers. After I composed myself, we walked and talked. We must have walked 10 kilometers. It was starting to get dark and Nang suggested we eat. Before our face-to-face meeting, we both went out of our way not to answer too many personal questions, so we would have more to talk about on our first date. We continued to walk as Nang responded to my continuing curiosities. She is a typical traditional Thai girl. She works as a loan officer for a foreign bank in Bangkok. Her parents live in Chonburi. She's been living on her own for about 7 years in Bangkok. The salaries here in Thailand are terrible, even for those who have bachelor's or even master's degrees. So Nang is very careful with money. When we ate dinner, she insisted that she pay, and in the end we agreed to split the bill. Before I had a chance to blink, it was midnight. It was obvious that both of us didn't want the night to end. Being a good girl, Nang suggested we meet the following day. I was relieved that the interest wasn't only on my side. We said our goodbyes and it was then I kissed her. Luckily for me, she went along with it. I told my brother and his wife about my date. They were a bit skeptical, but in the end they congratulated me. By this time we had a little over a week left on our 30-day tourist visas. I knew I would be extending my 30-day visa to a 60-day visa, but I needed to begin sorting out where I would be staying. I had saved up $5,000 and had also booked an English TEFL teaching course in Koh Samui. The problem was that my course wasn't going to be starting until September, and at this point it was only June. This meant my money had to stretch 4 months minimum, provided I would get a teaching job as soon as I completed my teaching course. After I explained this to Nang, she offered to let me stay at her condo as long as we didn't sleep together. I told her that I was happy to accept that offer. Nang was surprised that I agreed to take things slow. Previous to me coming to Thailand, I had casually dated a few different women, but my experience were quite unfulfilling. Nang was so interesting, kind and beautiful. I had no interest in getting into anything until she was ready. As the next months passed by, I was living with Nang. I eventually said goodbye to my brother and his wife. They decided to extend their visas as well. I was so happy with Nang, and I were able to take them out for dinner before they headed back to America. Just like that, it was just me in this country of Thailand, and the only person I knew here was Nang. I could write a series of books on the complexities of dating a Thai woman, but I would just say Thai women are so different from Western women, it's almost like dating a third gender. Nang took care of me like I was royalty. That being said, like many beautiful women here, Nang had an explosive temper. We had our share of arguments and issues with jealousy, but in the end we worked through it all. I was happier than I had ever been in my life, and although I had told Nang this daily, she still assumed I would just find someone more beautiful than her. Aware that this kind of jealousy is a deal breaker for many men, at times I felt like it wasn't going to work, but I was able to put her jealousy into context. What I mean is that women in Thailand have a much different experience than Western women with regards to cheating. I communicated that if she was too jealous, it would have a negative effect on our relationship. Nang listened and to my concerns, and she slowly was able to trust me. September came and my teaching course began, and to my surprise I had a job offer at a private school in Bangkok on the first week of the 4-week course. The job paid more than I expected, 40,000 baht to start. By the time my course finished, my money was dwindling down. Looking back, I have nothing but gratitude for all the things that went right. In addition to the decent salary that my job offered, they also would manage all the complications of obtaining a work permit and reimburse me for all my visa costs. I was riding high. Nang was helping me with money, and now I was just happy to return the favour. In February of 2019, 8 months into our relationship, I asked Nang to meet me after work to get dinner at a restaurant near the Siam BTS station. As we stepped off the train, I walked to the edge of the platform. She began wondering what I was doing, but figured I was just trying to get a nice picture of the beautiful Bangkok skyline like I always do. As she walked towards me, I got down on one knee and asked her to marry me. There were people all around us trying to act like they didn't see what just happened. Nang's eyes began to flood as she responded, yes. I know it may seem foolish to propose marriage after only 8 months of dating, but I just knew our relationship is far from perfect. But we've both matured and grown well together. What a fantastic story. I mean, I don't think 8 months is too soon, do you? A lot of guys go through lots of bad experiences with Thai girls, and they never end up in a real relationship. It's so great for him. You know, he met this beautiful girl, real solid girl, works, and hopefully they're still happily together. Okay, that's it for this week. Once again, guys, I'll end as I always do. If you're sitting on a story, it doesn't have to be about Thailand. Anywhere in the world, if it's an interesting story, I'll read it out. I'll change your names. I'll make it anonymous, and you too can have your story read out right here on Thailand Bound. Thanks for listening again, guys, and I'll be back with some more stories next Saturday.